Trump goes hard on China, AOC finds out what a garbage disposal is, and James Comey bashes Trump. I am Stephen Hall, and this is The Americans Awful Recap. Okay, so we have a lot of news to get to this week. We have, at first, this disturbing video coming out on Monday. These group of kids from the American Society of Islamic Center came and created this video about decapitating their enemies. Now, it's important to know that these kids are probably like 5 to 10, okay? And the only news channels that report on this are right-wing, like Fox News. No one else has spoken out about this. In other news, we also have Bernie Sanders, who had this interview at ABC, where he was questioned about his capability to beat Trump compared to the other candidates.
Jim Messina was the architect of Obama's re-election victory, and I asked him if you could beat Donald Trump, and he told me flatly no.
He did.
He said Bernie Sanders cannot beat
Jim Messina has worked for, I think, the Conservative Party in England. Look, Messina is entitled to his view.
He's not the only one who said that. I mean, other Democrats.
Look, we are taking. Now, let me just conclude that part of the discussion. We did polling, which you may have seen a couple of weeks ago. These were good polls by a very reputable pollster. We were beating Trump substantially in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and Michigan. And in fact, I think the way to beat Trump is to talk about the issues that working people feel about.
Okay, and also Marco Rubio has called for these Venezuelan refugees to have temporary protection status. Next, Cory Booker is also reacting to the good economic growth by stating that it's all because of Obama.
That means that most Americans are 2 flat tires away from a crisis. This is not shared economic growth. And that's why the Trump toxic tax plan that's blown massive holes in our economy, that we may be burning a lot of that right now to burn hot on the numbers that he quotes, but that's causing debt that our children are going to have to pay for, meanwhile doing nothing to stimulate the kind of growth in this economy as if we were investing in infrastructure or investing in directly raising the wages. That's why my plan to massively expand the earned income tax credit is a much better way to go about actually creating more growth in our economy and lifting the wages of 150 million Americans, cutting poverty by a third by returning dignity to work, that if you're willing to work, you should have a living wage. 1 job should be enough. I have people in my neighborhood that work 2 jobs or more and still need food stamps at my local bodega to pay for food for their family. That's not the America that I know.
But Kamala Harris is stating that Stacey Abrams, the candidate of Georgia, she lost her race due to voter suppression. Okay, and Stacey Abrams, by the way, is the Democratic politician who lost her race in Georgia by 55,000 votes.
Let's say this loud and clear. Without voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia. Andrew Gillum is the governor of Florida. So the truth is, we need a new Voting Rights Act.
It seems that some Democrats are continuing to push for impeachment after the Mueller report.
Are you concerned that impeachment talk may actually help the president's reelection?
I'm concerned that if we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected. If we don't impeach him, he will say he has been vindicated. He will say the Democrats had an overwhelming majority in the House and they didn't take up impeachment. He will say that we had a constitutional duty to do it if it was there and we didn't. He will say that he has been vindicated. But here's what I say. We're confronting a constitutional crisis as I speak to you. As I look the people of America in the eye, I'm telling you, we have a constitutional crisis. When the chief executive officer, the president of the United States, refuses to comply with subpoenas and says he will order others to do so, this creates a constitutional crisis.
Finally, some polls came out this week that stated that Biden has about 45% approval ratings, with Bernie falling massively, and everyone else going between 5 to 0%. Now, it's important to state that Hillary Clinton also had these similar polls during the 2016 election when she was first starting out. And, she ended up later losing the election because of that. On Tuesday, Democratic Representative Brian Sims tries to dox 3 pro-life teen girls and offers $100 for their identities. He also went out today and harassed this woman protesting outside of an abortion clinic.
Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania, they have to deal with people like this every single day. They deal with people out here every single day telling others what's right for their bodies. But we're not going to let them get away with it. Absolutely not. No, ma'am. Don't hide. Don't hide. You're publicly protesting women coming to a Planned Parenthood. It's something they have a right to do. Don't hide from it. Don't hide from it. Have the courage of your broken convictions if this is what you're going to do. Everyone, this is what they deserve and this is what they need. Every single time any of us walk by something like this, we're letting them win. We're letting them think that they are right, and we know better. These people have no business telling anybody else what's right for their body. They have no business telling people of color what they think about what they do with their families, with their own family planning. This is disgusting. This isn't Christianity. This isn't love. This isn't support. This isn't kindness. This is the hiding, shameful face of those that judge at Planned Parenthood, and it's disgusting.
We also have Joe Biden that say that Jim Crow is coming back to America.
And folks, last year, 24 states introduced or enacted at least 70 bills to curtail the right to vote. And guess what? Mostly directed at, quote, people of color. You see it. We got Jim Crow sneaking back in. No, I mean it.
Now, it's important to point out that, historically speaking, Democrats were actually the people that brought Jim Crow to the United States. Finally, Jay Inslee, who is right now polling at under 1%, is trying to push more on climate change. He wants to make that the sole factor in his campaign.
I think there's a couple of uniqueness about my position. One, I'm really the only candidate that on day one said that I'm going to make this the #1 job of my administration. And look, if this is not job one, it will not get done. You've been around the bush, Chuck. You know that this takes enormous political capital, and I'm willing to do that. Number two, I've got a literally multi-decadal effort on this. I'm the only candidate who's written a book on it, formed the U.S. Climate Alliance, and now the only candidate to date to make a clear commitment on getting off of coal as one of our principles. And today, the third thing is, I'm the only candidate to actually get something done on this, because today, in about a couple hours, I'm signing the best 100% clean energy bill for the electrical grid and the strongest energy policies in buildings in the country. So I think that's a trifecta. I feel good about that. There's a lot of talent in the field. I've already identified 18 potential vice presidents, but I'm pretty unique in this regard.
On Wednesday and Thursday, Trump declared executive privilege to the unredacted parts of the Mueller report, and he also got his tax records from the past 3 decades released, and he apparently lost thousands of dollars throughout the past years. In 1985, he actually lost $46.1 million across all his businesses. Georgia also passed this new law where you can't kill a baby after 6 weeks. 3 women, by the way, have created this law. Democrats also claim that there is a constitutional crisis going on.
Do you agree with Chairman Nadler that the country is currently in a constitutional crisis?
Yes, I do agree with Chairman Nadler, because the administration has decided that they are not going to honor their oath of office.
President Trump has responded to the fake news and stated that they will be out of business, and they are wrong. He's claiming that executive privilege will allow him to have these privacies throughout current decisions going on in the government. Trump also had a rally this week, and it got a lot of people angry about this clip.
I mean, when you have 15,000 people marching up, and you have hundreds and hundreds of people, and you have 2 or 3 border security people that are brave and great, and don't forget, we don't let them, and we can't let them use weapons. We can't. Other countries do. We can't. I would never do that. But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no... That's only in the Panhandle you can get away with that statement. Only in the Panhandle.
There was also a shooting in Colorado. An 18-year-old named Kendrick Castillo was the only fatality in the assault. Now, there's a massive backlash from the students at the school that it's getting politicized. This shooting is getting politicized.
We are pretty much really mad because they turned us into politics about gun control when we came here to respect our brother Kendrick, who gave his life back. What is happening at STEM is awful, but it's not a statistic. We can't be used for a reason for gun control. We are people, not a statement.
Everybody's been sitting here talking about gun violence and avoiding the fact that he's not here. Castillo is the kindest, gentlest soul that you've ever met.
Now, the rest of this video is just the students getting upset, getting angry at the news and the school for politicizing this tragedy that they're dealing with. And at the end, when they're all leaving, they end up screaming mental health. On Friday, James Comey came out and bashed Trump on CNN. You know, it's important to know that James Comey is the FBI director and exonerated Hillary Clinton from crimes after testifying that she did commit these crimes.
In your opinion, there was corrupt intent, at least in several of those episodes. By
sure looks that way from the report's factual recitation.
If you know, they're now I think it's up to 800 former federal prosecutors who've worked in both Republican and Democratic administrations who have signed a statement saying that Mueller's findings would have produced obstruction charges against President Trump if he weren't president. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
No doubt.
No doubt. Again, there's 10 different episodes. I actually think the ones that would be most likely charged are not necessarily the ones that involved me, but particularly this McGahn episode and another episode where he was trying to get the Attorney General to limit the investigation only to future elections are examples that any reasonable prosecutor would charge.
Also, China is declaring a trade war on Trump because of the tariffs that he's pushing.
Orders is doing another couple $100 billion worth of tariffs. That's obviously American consumers are going to feel that when China retaliates, including those voters in the Midwest that the president is so counting on in his reelection campaign next year.
Explain that, John, how it works with. So you get down to Walmart's or whatever, you buy your cotton shirts or your underwear or socks, or basic goods. A lot of them come from China. 25% markup? Is that what we're facing here?
It's possible. If this continues to escalate, that's exactly what consumers, your average American, goes to a store like that to try to buy basic goods that they need every day and every week, and they're going to be paying more because of what the president is doing right now.
It's important to know that China is the real threat to the Western world, okay? China constantly steals from American product ideas. They build man-made islands in the South China Sea. China is still standing behind North Korea. And China wants to expand into South America, Africa, and India. And plus, we owe them money. Also, Joe Biden is also moving more to the left in his campaign.
Look, I think that anyone who is in a situation where they're in need of health care, regardless of whether they're documented or undocumented, we have an obligation to see that they're cared for. That's why I think we need more clinics around the country. And this idea that undocumented, and by the way, a significant portion of undocumented folks in this country are there because they've overstayed their visas. It's not people breaking down gates coming across the border. And so, look, the biggest thing we got to do in this is just tone down the rhetoric. We know why it's happening. It's to create fear and concern. Why are your job in tough shape? Because of that and then he describes in very graphic, unflattering terms that other, the immigrant. This is ridiculous. And by the way,
it also seems that AOC is going to endorse Bernie for president because they had the discussion this week that talked about removing post offices and replacing them with banks. They also talked about limiting the credit card industry by setting a cap in interest rate to 15%. And the idea was immediately opposed by the banking industry. And it's just important to point out that the vast majority of people actually support a cap.
15%, by the way, is a lot. 15% interest is a lot. So you can run a bank, you can continue to be profitable, but to charge 30, 40% interest rates is no less than extortion.
Well, that's all the news for this week. I'm Stephen Hall, and this is the Americans Awful Recap.